Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 27. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lowry, finalist in the Extreme Hunters Contest.
This is Boyd Barnett with Moultrie Products and the Moultrie Total Game Management Podcast.
This is Dean Vanier with Northwoods Common Sense.
This is Rob Lucas from Chasing Tail. Tim Moore from TimMooreOutdoors.com, the New Hampshire Seacoast Guide.
This is Nathan Biggs with Browtime Productions.
You're listening to the
Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, and I am here with my field correspondent from Ohio, Dusty Phillips. What's happening, Dusty?
You know, the temperatures are starting to warm up here in Ohio a little bit, calling for 50 degrees over the weekend. So snow's melting, and I think the fair weather hunters may be back in the woods.
Oh, no kidding. Are you guys still hunting in Ohio?
Yes, we are. We're here till February with the hunting season, archery. Got a late muzzleloader coming up, so that's something to look forward to for the Buckeye hunters. And what's going on in New Hampshire?
Man, you guys have it so good down there. It's like Mecca of deer hunting in Ohio, because our deer season is completely over, including the archery season.
Done for the year.
Done. December 15th. The gun season ends 1 week prior to the end of the archery season, and archery season ended December 15th.
Wow.
So now we just turn to predator hunting, if you like to do that, and ice fishing, basically.
Awesome. You know, predator hunting and ice fishing, that's not too bad either.
It's not too bad, but, you know, I'd rather be hunting the deer.
For sure. You know, there's nothing better than seeing that big rat coming through the woods.
Wow, so you guys can go up to February 1st?
Yeah, it's the 4th, if I ain't mistaken.
Oh, that's awesome.
I could be mistaken. Don't take me for granted on that. I don't know the exact date.
No,
I need to look.
That's all right. No big deal. So we have a pretty cool show today. This is a little more serious than we usually do this. But I thought it was a very interesting topic, and this is more me than you. I know you consider me more the serious side of this whole thing. You know, but
it's going to be very informal for our listeners. And that's kind of where it's something that we need to get out there.
Absolutely. And I got an email from Edison Waite, our good friend from Buckmasters, the master scorer there. And the email it was entitled Wildlife and the Outdoors. And it was this article written about how gun and ammunition sales affect state game and fish agencies. And it was written by a guy by the name of Jeff Makemson, who is a certified wildlife biologist from the Alabama Division of Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries. And lo and behold, there was a phone number attached at the bottom of the website, and I gave him a call. And I got a hold of Jeff Makemson to speak to us about the details of his article that he wrote. And it's really all about where the money comes from to support fish and game agencies and conservation efforts, and how the money actually gets there from the federal level.
You know, and that's something that we want everybody to listen to this podcast and get familiar with where the funding comes from.
Right. And it's something we take for granted. It's something we don't really even think about when we buy a package of bullets, or something when we buy a new gun, we buy a hunting license. I don't think we really think about it that much. But after listening to Jeff, and we did pre-record the show with him, so we're going to play it for you. But what's interesting is to think about how few deer there were in the country in 1937 and where they are today. The entire population of the deer in Alabama in 1937 was about 2,000.
If it wasn't for these folks, we wouldn't be hunting whitetail.
Correct. And we wouldn't have this podcast, and there wouldn't be a hunting industry. There wouldn't be hunting shows. There wouldn't be the Duck Dynasty. There wouldn't be Chasing Tail. There wouldn't be anything on TV about hunting deer.
Zero. Nothing.
Zero.
Nada.
Zero. So when you think about this, just give a little thanks to this Restoration Act, because this whole show, the whole purpose of the Big Buck Registry, would not exist today.
It wouldn't be here, folks.
All right,
let's call him up.
Let's talk to Jeff. Thanks for joining us. I do appreciate you spending some time with us to go over the article that you wrote. And the article that you wrote was How Gun and Ammunition Sales Affect State Game and Fish Agencies.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to get into that whole article a little deeper, and understand what that's all about. It's kind of interesting to know where money comes from for the state fish and game agencies, and going through your article is quite interesting, but I'd like to let you tell the story.
Sure. Well, I manage a 45,000-acre public hunting area in Alabama, and I can remember unloading a shipment of seed that was about $3,000 worth of seed for our fall planting for wildlife. And the truck driver said, "You mean I paid for all this?" And I said, "Well, sir, do you hunt?" He said, "Well, I used to, but I hadn't hunted in years." And I said, "Have you bought any guns or ammunition lately?" He said, "No, not lately." I said, "Well, you didn't pay a dime for this." And he looked at me funny, and I said, general taxpayer dollars are not used to support wildlife conservation in most states, and it's certainly the case in Alabama. And I think there's a big misconception out there about where agencies get their monies. And the Pittman-Robert Act is, it was a historical act that restored wildlife populations and currently continues to manage them throughout the nation.
Gotcha.
And it was passed in 1937.
Okay, Jeff, you're a biologist, right? Certified wildlife biologist with the Alabama Division of Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So tell me more about the Act of 1937. Well, why was it put in place?
Well, presidents, legislators, landowners, sportsmen throughout the nation were concerned that their children and grandchildren wasn't going to have wildlife populations to hunt. And that was the primary reason. Sportsmen got behind it and lobbied for it, and it was passed in 1937. And the area that I managed was established in 1938. It was the first wildlife management area in Alabama.
No kidding.
And it was the second place in our state to receive stocking of whitetail deer. Wildlife populations were dwindling throughout the nation, and it's a great success conservation story.
Mm-hmm.
When you think now in Alabama alone that we harvest, we will kill as many whitetail deer in 1 year than were in the whole nation in 1900. That's a huge success story. That we're able to manage this resource, without abusing it. We're just, keeping it healthy, and it will be there for generations to enjoy for years to come.
There are a couple things you just said there that are kind of interesting. The first is that the area that you manage was established in 1938, which was not long after the act was put in play.
That's right.
And just so our listeners can hear it, is the Federal Aid and Wildlife Restoration Act 1937.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Usually called the Pittman-Robert Act. That's how you had wrote it or written it. Named after Senator Key Pittman of Nevada.
Yes, sir.
And Representative Absalom. Is that what it is? Absalom.
That's how I would say it.
Absalom Willis Robertson of Virginia. So basically, in 1937, or prior to 1937, in 1935, 36, there was a crisis of wildlife going on in the United States. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Many species were on the brink of extinction that we continue to enjoy today. The Rocky Mountain mule deer. There's just a number of species that were just almost completely wiped out, because prior to that, we had the sale of hunting license, and that's just a small portion of what's needed to enforce regulations, and there were no biologists practically in the nation then working with state agencies helping to manage the populations, but they were gone. I mean, we had 2,000 deer in 1900 in Alabama, and now we have about 1.7 million.
2,000 deer were left in Alabama in 1937?
Yes, sir. That's exactly
smokes.
right.
Dusty, can you imagine that?
Oh, it sure wouldn't take long to eliminate the deer population at all.
Wow.
No.
What was going on in 1930 and the 30s that caused all this?
Well, unregulated sport hunting or primarily market hunting. Back then, people lived off what Mother Nature provided for them. And there was no season, no bag limit, for the most part in most states. And, you got your food by going and grabbing your gun and going to shooting a squirrel or killing possums at night, raccoons. Even then, there were hardly no beaver in Alabama, because beaver was a popular table fare. And, of course, the deer were wiped out primarily for food.
Interesting. So, like when you see a movie from the 40s that depicts life in the 30s and 20s, that was pretty accurate.
Yes.
Where you're out on the frontier shooting a game to put on your dinner table. It
was.
There was the civilization was still developing at that point.
That's right. That's right. And they just survived off the land, and where you had good rich soil, you were able to farm and maybe didn't have to quite hunt as much. But even those guys that had the fertile soil and farmed a lot still needed meat on the table, and it was a tough life. Gotcha. But I think I would have actually enjoyed it back then. But anyhow,
yeah, no, I mean there's definitely some elements of that day and time that is very appealing to me and to you and to Dusty. That it's like a rawness to survival. It's kind of the things that I think we partake. That's reasons we partake in hunting today is because we like that tradition. We like to feel like
it's often overlooked.
Very much so.
The meat on the table, that was the whole purpose of hunting back in the day.
Right. Now today we have some grocery stores and stuff like that, but now it's almost like a lifestyle choice to go out and hunt and put free range organic meats on your table instead of going to the grocery store and buying stuff that's wrapped in cellophane. That it's just but back then that was a necessity. That was one of the ways in which you survived as a human.
It was. That's exactly right. And I think there's a big misconception out there that a lot of wildlife species are made game animals simply to ensure their survival, and that raises a lot of eyebrows. But that's a fact. If it's better managed, better regulated, if it's a game species, it's like our black bear. It's still considered a game animal in Alabama, but there's no open season on it.
Right.
But we're able to use funds to help manage and restore that population.
Gotcha. So the area that you managed, it was 450,000 acres. Did I hear you correctly?
It's 45,000 acres. I manage it with the partnership of the U.S. Forest Service. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. And that area was the second place in Alabama to receive funds. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was the second place. It was the first management area established, and it was the second place to receive stocking of whitetail deer. See, I mean, there wasn't any deer back then, and so we had our deer. Most of the deer on my area came from Pisgah, North Carolina. And, we brought deer in here from other parts to restore their population. Gotcha. And once the population could support some hunting, and antler season was allowed, fairly short one, but, and some years later, we started allowing some antlerless harvest.
Gotcha.
This is very, very interesting.
So the deer that were stalked, came from, did you say Pisgah, North Carolina?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Pisgah?
That's correct.
Interesting. So what was going on in Pisgah, North Carolina that allowed for some deer to be moved? Was there a better management going on there at that time?
I think it was a more remote area, and it was a big national forest land. So they came off of a national forest. Gotcha. And, evidently there wasn't as many people as hungry in North Carolina as there were in Alabama. Maybe they were eating all bear up there and letting the deer go. I don't know about that.
Gotcha, right.
But we talk about deer. I mean, the pronghorn antelope, 70 years ago there was 12,000. Now we've got 1 million. The wild turkey, 100,000. Now we got over 4.5 million. Rocky Mountain elk, 41,000 in 1907. Now there's close to 1 million. So I mean, there's a number of success stories that go along with the Pittman-Robert Act, and that's all those monies can be used for. And thanks to gun sales that have dramatically increased in the last 6 years or so, and states have received more funding.
Gotcha.
To do wildlife conservation and management. And in Alabama, we operate about 36 state wildlife management areas, over 700,000 acres on the Pittman-Robert Act annually.
Wow. I think we almost take it for granted. Like, there's so many deer that we chase every single season, but we don't realize that there was this thing going on back in 1937. And if that didn't get corrected, we wouldn't be hunting anything right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, there'd still be a few people chasing squirrels,
right,
and raccoons, but, whitetail deer drives our state. Not only direct individuals that hunt, but individuals that come here and stay a week or two and hunt and stay in motels. And there's an awful lot of money that's spent throughout the nation and other states. And about 80% of our hunters will hunt whitetail deer.
Right.
That's what they prefer to hunt.
Right. Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, if you think about where the deer have gone from 2,000 deer in Alabama to the numbers that you have, I mean, I think of Alabama today, tons and tons of wildlife.
Yes, sir. You're exactly right. It's a great time to be a hunter in Alabama and really throughout the nation.
Absolutely.
This is just one state we're taking a snapshot look at, but other states are blessed like we are. But
Right.
we do have a lot of physiographic regions in Alabama, a lot of different habitat types, and it's one of the most diverse states in the nation. And we're very blessed. And honestly, none of this, even with the Pittman-Robertson Act in our state, would have been possible without the support of our private landowners, because they own and control about 94% of the land in Alabama. So, if it wasn't for their interest in this, they'd make the choice that they're going to manage for deer or turkey or other game species, and they're not going to put a trailer park in, or they're not going to put a shopping mall on their property, or do other things, because they're interested in the management of these wildlife resources. So we couldn't do it. We own less public land in Alabama than just about any state in the nation, and without their support, without their help, it wouldn't be possible here and in many other states.
It's a very good point. If you think about the amount of industry that is created around deer hunting, because the population of the deer are well supported now. I mean, it's a massive mega million, probably $1 billion industry at this point nationwide. Would you agree?
Let's see, the article that I wrote in research, since the implementation of the Act, more than $13 billion have been collected and distributed with matching funds from state agencies. So in Alabama alone, it's about $1.2 billion annually.
Okay, so $1.2 billion come out of this industry. Now, your article described the funds being distributed because of firearm and ammunition sales. Is there more to it? Is it a tax on the ammunition that we're talking about and the firearms?
It is. It's an 11% tax. The tax in 1937 already existed, but they started earmarking that money to the state wildlife and fish agencies for specific purposes of acquiring land, managing and restoring wildlife populations.
Gotcha. So at the time, back up just to a sec. When we talk about the Restoration Act, there was an act to restore wildlife in the United States, but did it have a weakness in funding at that point, and they needed something to tax so that they could fund it?
They basically just needed the money earmarked. The tax again was already there.
Okay.
All state agencies had at the time was funds on hunting license sales.
Gotcha.
And that was just back then that wasn't very much at all. I mean, in Alabama in 1937, most conservation officers, again, there were no biologists, and most conservation officers were required to use their own vehicle. They bought their own little sidearm, and they didn't have any radios. It was just an unorganized, very dangerous field to be in.
Right.
And
I would imagine. I mean, imagine what it was like being a conservation officer back in 1937 when this thing first went into play.
It'd be tough.
You're changing lifestyles.
That would be tough.
Those were some very hardy, very tough individuals, and I would imagine that most of the best officers back then were probably at one time some of the very best outlaws, and at least I've heard stories to that effect. But what's neat about the Pittman-Robertson Act is, we talked about management areas and we talked about restoring populations, but it's also built public shooting ranges throughout the nation. Mm-hmm. It's created access for hunting, fishing, and boating, and it's provided funds for wildlife research. So, I mean, there's specific things that money has to be used for and can't be used for anything else.
Mm-hmm. So it really went from being a tax on hunting licenses to a tax on a much bigger part of the hunting industry, being ammunition and firearms. And it's an 11% tax.
11%. And it's matched on a 3-to-1 basis. And what's really important is the states use the hunting license sales dollars for that 25% match to get the 75% match initially. So again, you have to have the match. You have to match at 25%. Some states were broke, so many of them increased hunting license sales to get that monies to match to get their $3 for every dollar.
Now, when you say match, what are we matching? Where's the money coming from?
Department of Interior collects the monies. Okay. from the Pittman-Robertson Act.
Okay, got it.
And they will pool, anywhere from $350 to $360 or $70 million annually, and they will look at the formula, and it's based on the number of licensed hunters each state has and also on the total forested area of the state. So they look at Alabama and they say, okay, they've got 260,000 hunters. They've got 20.1 million acres. This is the formula. Boom. This is what Alabama gets this year.
Fascinating.
And that's how it's divided up between the states.
That's fascinating. So
it is, and it works so well and continues to work so well that they modeled the Dingell-Johnson Act, which does the very same thing with fisheries.
Okay.
That's how fisheries departments, state departments are funded, because they placed an excise tax in the early 50s on fishing equipment, and that finally gave states some monies to start managing their fisheries resource. So it's a user pay concept,
right.
And it's good to see the individuals that are really interested and dedicated to something, paying for it and seeking and receiving the rewards from it.
Absolutely. So I'm in New Hampshire. Dusty is in Ohio. Every year I go online and I order my hunting license and fishing license from the New Hampshire State Fish and Game Department. And I also get my extra deer tag. I get my bear tag. I get my waterfowl and my hip permit. And it costs about $147-ish, thereabouts.
Yes, sir.
Every year. Dusty, what do you pay for your license?
It's 20. It's 20 for the actual resident hunting license, and then 24 for either sex deer permit. That gets you started. And then you got fishing license and waterfowl tags and federal stamp, and it can get the $100 bill no problem.
Okay, so we're north of $100, easy. On my ticket, though, I never see a tax when they do that. Is that just part of the game, or is it just something I'm not looking at?
Yeah, most state agencies don't actually tax themselves or don't pay any kind of sales tax on anything. If it's a state agency,
okay.
Whether we're buying tires or we're going to Lowe's to get some wood to build a wood duck house, we don't pay any tax on it.
Right. But on my license, I don't see a line item that says federal tax for the Pittman-Robert Act. Boom. Here's your tax you got to pay to get your hunting license. There's nothing there. So the taxes aren't, there's a certain amount of money that comes from the hunter's licenses still, correct?
Not from the license. That tax is on firearms and ammunition, sporting arms and ammunition. It's not on the actual license itself.
Did they abandon the license altogether? Any of the money that come from the license altogether? Like where they were originally doing it in the 30s?
The Pittman-Robertson Act cannot be used for any law enforcement activity.
Okay.
So the hunting license sales is what funds the conservation officers.
Got it. Okay.
And what funds the wildlife section and the Wildlife Management Department is the Pittman-Robertson Act.
Gotcha.
And we have to do a weekly report every week of our activities, and we have about 9 codes that we have to code our daily activities out on, depending on what we're doing. I'm also a conservation officer in Alabama and a certified wildlife biologist, and depending on what your activities are for the day, you have to code it so that the accountant knows how to distribute the funds.
So when you say you code it, this is on the wildlife biology side or on the conservation side, conservation officer side?
On our biologist weekly report that we do,
okay.
we have to code daily activities based on whether we work on management areas or we work for private landowners or we work in the county enforcing game and fish laws and other activities. There's a number of them. Whether we're doing hunter education, you're dealing with government, so you're dealing with a stack of paperwork, and that's just all part of it.
Yeah, if it's government, there's going to be a bundle of paperwork that goes along with all this stuff, especially if you're receiving funds from the Department of the Interior.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Jeff, what inspired you to write the article?
It gets back to that truck driver bringing me my seed, and that's been a few years ago, and I haven't thought about that, or haven't forgotten about it. I think there's just, and running into hunters and individuals in the field that just simply don't know how we're funded. I've taught tens of thousands of hunter education students, and in my PowerPoint presentation, I always make sure they understand that those that hunt, those that fish, those that buy a license, and guns and ammunition directly pay our salary, period. And don't be afraid to come and talk to us. We work for you. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have a job. And I'm very customer oriented, as with many of our employees, and we have to be that way and need to be that way even more, because if somebody's paying your paycheck, you want to serve them as much as you can.
Right. So in order to get the money to Alabama, you need a certain amount of forests. You need a certain amount of licenses sold for hunting and fishing, and then they'll send the money to match the
That's
money.
right.
Gotcha. And if you don't get that money, your department suffers.
Yes, it will. Things would be a lot different. That's for sure. We wouldn't be able to manage the wildlife for the public.
Right.
I'm going to jump in here, Jay. I got a quick question. From 1937 to now, has the taxes changed any? Has there been an increase in the tax that comes out?
That act has not changed, thank God, a bit. It's 11% still to this day.
Still today, it's 11%. Yeah, that was just a question I had to see if it increased at all or if it's pretty much been level the whole way through.
That's amazing to think that a tax hasn't changed since 1937.
Yep. To my knowledge, that tax has not changed.
Right.
And many, there have been some efforts in the past to tap in some of that money and use it for other things by some legislators and others, but conservation groups have stepped up and thankfully have put a stop to that in the past, and hopefully will continue to do so.
Yeah, that's great. Just a question there. That's very interesting that it hasn't been taxed. As Jay said, it's with taxes rising regularly like they do with any other thing that's taxed. That it's leveled out at 11% all this time.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely
That's
amazing.
Exactly right.
So do you see this changing in the future, Jeff? Do you see this kind of maintaining where it is and our guns and ammunition sales stabilized enough or increased for whatever reason, whether it be political or whatever? Do you think that there's enough gun and ammunition sales to support where we need to go with fish and game management and resources?
Well, there's an awful lot of other things that we could be doing if we had more monies. I mean, we're thankful for what we got and what we get annually, but there's a number of things that we could be doing a little different, and spending more time on and working with other species. But, I think that some states have taxed other items as well, such as binoculars and kind of non-consumptive use items like camping equipment and to help fund their wildlife department, but currently we're not doing that.
Gotcha.
But I think it's with the shows, honestly, like Duck Dynasty, and you see Doomsday Preppers, and people are trying to get back to the earth. I mean, they're these things they're thinking, this could actually happen. And what would we do? Well, we have trapping workshops now where people are learning how to trap. And there's a whole generation that hasn't even hunted. And I had a guy just the other day he was 40 years old and had 2 kids in his truck, and I ran into him on my area, and he said, I don't even know how to skin a deer. He said, but I'm trying to get back into hunting. All these kind of popular shows have got people thinking, and I said, well, I tell you what, I got to hunt this weekend. If you kill a deer, bring it to me at the check station, and I'll skin it for you and show you how to do it.
Right.
And believe it or not, he took me up on it. He pulled up there with a grin on his face, and
that's a great story.
It is. That's a true story, and I've skinned it out for him, and he was tickled to death, and he learned how to do it on his own, and he couldn't thank me enough. But like I told you guys, we work for you. Any way we can help you, we need to be doing that.
Right.
And that's Alabama's firearms and ammunition tax at work there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That's pretty cool because our show wouldn't exist if the act hadn't been put in play, I would imagine. Right, Dusty?
Yeah, I'm thinking that it saved the whitetails, for one. Yeah, keep them from getting knocked out totally.
Right. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if that were existing. You wouldn't have hunting today in a manner in which you would think it would be.
I think we'd still be we'd probably be talking squirrel hunting. Yeah. I don't think you can kill all the squirrels out there.
There wouldn't be. Right. You'd be killing something else, but we wouldn't have a Big Buck Registry, Big Buck podcast at all. Duck Dynasty wouldn't exist, so it's kind of feeding itself. But still, what we're doing here today is to capture the story, sport, and spirit of big buck deer hunting, and
we got to know how it got to that point.
Right. So we got to know where we came from, but we also need to know where we want to go, and that's what we're doing right now. Is we know that as long as we keep telling the stories, capturing the photos, and encouraging the sport to live on, then there will be more deer because the money and the taxes will flow back, as long as this act stays in place, back to the wildlife conservation areas, to COs and wildlife biology, to make sure that those populations around forever for our generations to come. And that money just keeps cycling over and over and over. The stories get created, the energy gets created, the hunters go out in the field and they buy more bullets, they buy more guns, and on and on and on.
That's exactly right, and we appreciate you guys bringing light to this important subject.
And without the biologist, as of yourself, that without you, none of this is available. You do your research and help the area, help conservate the area that this wildlife's got to live in. They've got to have a home, and somebody's got to make sure that it's correct for them.
That's exactly right, and and I love to share it, with the family and friends. And just last week, my daughter shot a deer, and that's some of the most, fond memories that I have is hunting with my son and my daughter and other family members, as well as you guys will understand that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the kind of story we love to hear, and we like to break it down into the little details about how you even got into the field with your daughter in the first place, all the way through the hunt, and along with the great feelings and emotions that go along with that. That's what we're trying to capture here, so that others can relate to the story and that understand that there's a lot of people doing this, and that it's okay to feel good about this. This is a good thing. It's despite some of the anti-hunters out there, this is a good thing.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. And it's great table fare, too.
It's delicious.
It is.
Would you say that hunters are the biggest conservationists out there?
Bar none, especially wildlife conservationists. If it wasn't for them, again, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now.
Right.
Because they pay for it. They support management and conservation efforts throughout the nation. They are the leading conservationists in the nation.
And do you think that the hunters realize that when they buy their tags, when they buy some bullets, when they buy a new gun? Do you think they realize that they're doing an act of conservation when they do that?
I think probably the majority of them do not, unfortunately, realize that. And that's pretty sad.
That's the word we need to get out, that they need to know that by buying and purchasing, they're helping out.
That's exactly right. And thanks to your show and this article and other ways, hopefully more people will come to the realization of that.
Right. Well, we're going to do the best we can to spread this word and keep it going. And I'll keep my eye out for any of the articles you write, Jeff. And we'd love to have you back on the show sometime.
Well, I'd love to come back. Again, thank you for all you're doing for wildlife conservation efforts.
We're happy to participate. And if you could, at some point, maybe come back on the show and share some hunting experiences, we'd love to hear some of those too.
Sounds great, sir. Thank you.
All right, Jeff. I appreciate it. Take care.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Dusty, what do you think about all that?
It makes me look at where I spend my money at and how it benefits the, wildlife programs.
Yep. That was pretty cool. So, it's just one of those things you always take for granted. You don't even know you don't know it. It's one of those things. So I thought it was very cool to get that message out. And, if any other articles come out that you find very interesting, definitely send them along, because we'll call up that person and get them to talk more in depth about that subject matter. I think that's one of the things that is unique about the Big Buck Registry, is that we're open to all suggestions. So if you want us to cover something, find this interesting article, forward it along, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and we will make sure that we get to that author or whoever's covering that story. We'll get more information about that.
And sometimes it just needs a little more detail to make it understandable for the average mind.
Yep. Let's check in with Amanda Lowry. You want to give her a call and see how she's doing on the Extreme Huntress?
Yeah, let's call her up out of the blue and see how everything's going for her.
Awesome.
Hi.
It's Jay and Dusty from the Big Buck Registry. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
We're doing good. We thought we'd shout out and see how your Extreme Huntress event's going.
It's going pretty good, actually. I keep going back and forth between second and third place on the vote, but I had 2 big articles come out yesterday, and that's helping quite a bit. And our local news is doing a story on Monday, so hopefully we can catch up by the end. I'm still about 400 and some behind first place, so I have a ways to go.
Well, we just decided to do a little impromptu call here to check in on you, and
cool.
We got another podcast coming out. Let's see, in a couple of weeks. When does the voting end?
It ends at midnight on January 1st.
Midnight, January 1st. All right. So we will actually be airing this before January 1st. So we'll be able to put it back on our websites and stuff again by making this call, and you'll be part of that subject line again. So maybe we can pick up a few votes for you along the way.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem. Are you still hunting?
Oh, yeah. We've got about a week left of late archery, and I haven't got to go out a whole lot the last few days, but hopefully this weekend I can get the job done.
I told Jay we may be catching her right in her tree stand tonight.
No, just got dark here a little bit ago, so I was just hanging out and watching TV with the kids for the evening. So.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for picking up the phone. We'll check in with you again down the road after January 1st, see how you did.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you guys for calling.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good one.
You too.
Bye, Amanda.
Bye-bye.
All right. So it sounds like Amanda is doing very well.
For sure. Wish her the best of luck. And we wish all the Extreme Huntress finalists the best of luck. And it won't be long. We'll know who is the 2013 Extreme Huntress. It's January 1st.
Yep. I think we're going to, let's follow up with her again, but let's push Amanda and see if we can get her some more votes. So extremehuntress.com/vote. Go vote for Amanda Lowry, Lowery. All right, Dusty, I think we need to do a prank call.
I think I may have a prime candidate.
Who do you want to prank?
Yeah, let's call my brother, Matt Phillips.
Matt Phillips. All right, Matt. Sorry to do this to you, buddy. But
yeah, sorry, buddy. You're our first victim, and we're going to call you up and see how your hunt went.
all right, let's do this.
Let's call him.
Hello?
Hello, is this Matt Phillips?
Yes.
Hey, Matt, this is Mr. Scott from the Division of Natural Resources. And how are you tonight?
Good.
Excellent. I'm just doing a little follow-up call on some trespassing charges that we're following up on. And
Oh, really?
yeah, we're just this is nothing big. I'm just doing some phone calls tonight.
Okay.
Do you hunt Benton County at all?
Yeah.
You do. Okay.
Huh?
Did you harvest any deer down there this year?
Yes, I did.
You did. Were you using a firearm?
No. I was using a bow.
Okay. All right. Do you know a Michael Howard?
Michael Howard?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. His vehicle was mentioned in the report. Something about a campground. Any of that sound familiar?
Yeah, but I mean, gun season, I didn't go with him. I hunted in November.
Gotcha. All right. So do you recall a trespassing at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. Matt, this is Jay Scott from the Big Buck Registry. I'm here with your brother. We're just busting on you.
Welcome to the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Thanks.
I'm sure this will cause some fights at Christmas.
Yeah, I guess.
What do you know?
Huh?
I said, what do you know?
I was just got home from eating dinner.
Oh, yeah. We're trying out our first prank phone call on the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast, and you became a victim.
Oh, well, I did. You about had me worried there for a minute.
Oh, man. Sorry. Dusty put me up to it, Matt.
Oh, that's okay.
It was Jay's ideal, so we had to go with it. But
That's
you're
all right.
my first victim.
I know Dusty's been just itching to prank call some people for other stuff. And I said,
Yeah.
And we just ended this interview. I said, Dusty, who do you want to prank call? He goes, my brother.
Yeah, you got me because I didn't know whose number this was.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Sorry about that, Matt, but it was fun.
Okay, that's cool.
Better go drink a beer because I know your blood pressure is through the roof.
Yeah, I'm a little red right now.
All right, man. Have a good one.
I think we got him, dude.
I think you got him.
That was funny.
He was hadden.
Yep.
He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say about that.
Nope. All right. Thank you, Matt. Sorry.
I'm sure he's probably still shaking right now.
Yeah. I felt bad doing a little bit, but it was still pretty funny.
Yeah, my Christmas may just got a little more interesting, Jay, calling him up like that.
Yep. All right.
But you never know, folks. You need to be ready because you may be the next victim of the Big Buck Podcast, Big Buck Registry Podcast prank call.
Mm-hmm. A new segment that Dusty has invented.
It's going to be something fun. It's going to be something interesting. And if you got maybe somebody that you want us to reach out to, give us a call.
Yep. Just three other things I want to cover. I'm going to play you three separate call-ins to the Big Buck Hotline, 724-613-2825. And they're kind of interesting, Dusty. Like, they're just call-ins that people have talked about a big deer that they shot, or just some feedback about a deer that they sent a picture in about. And then there's some feedback about Danny Hottinger, and very touching message that we got by voice. So I'm just going to cue those up right now.
Awesome. You know, we push you guys to call us up after your hunt or right after your harvest and from the tree stand. Give us a phone call.
Yep.
We love the phone calls.
We love phone calls, and it's not a lot of people do it, but it's kind of cool when they do, because it's like we interviewed them, but it's like you're in the field with your phone just after the hunt and you're all pumped up. We want to hear that excitement. That's what we live for. That's that adrenaline rush that we like to capture on audio.
We want to hear you feed the need right after you harvest.
Exactly.
Call us up.
We try to capture that by interviewing you after the hunt, several days later, months later, but there is nothing like being within 24 hours of that kill. There's probably nothing better than being on the scene. If you could dial us up the minute after you walk up to that deer, realize what you have, first thing we want you to do is pick up the phone and call us.
Yeah, that's what we want. But if you could call us from the tree stand 10 seconds after you release the arrow, do it.
Yeah. So, all right. I think I just got one. That would be very cool.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Now, I don't have any of those exact ones, but that's what we would love to hear. But we'll take any of them. We'll take any hunting story you want us to tell us, call us on the phone. But I do have a couple I'd like to play. This one came in from Larry, a guy named Larry from last year. And this has kind of set the stage for the phone service that we have. Again, 724-613-2825. Let's listen to Larry.
Hey, Jay, this is Larry Tatum. I just sent you some pictures of a buck I just shot probably middle of November down here in South Florida. The buck was a 12-point, typical, and right at 190 pounds it weighed. It's probably going to be the top 10 biggest typical bucks ever killed in Florida. I'm waiting for it to come back from the taxidermist so I can get a next score. They're still under 60 days. They won't give me a scoring on it, so I'm just waiting for it to come back. Hope all goes well.
So that was Larry from Florida. Sounds like he harvested one heck of a big deer. And again, this was from 2012, but I'd like to follow up with Larry this year to find out how it scored out, because I don't think we ever heard the story about what it finally scored, to see if it was, in fact, the largest deer ever taken in Florida.
What else you got for us?
All right. Next one is a guy named Rob Nichols.
Hey guys, my name is Robert Nichols. I had shot a 11-pointer last night in Grady County, Oklahoma. Was hunting with my son. This buck came in following another smaller 8-pointer and 40 yards. Couldn't pass him up. Shot. He ran off. Give him a little while. In fact, he didn't even bleed out till he laid down and shooting a rage hypodermic. Did a lot of damage, but he just didn't bleed out. But awesome hunt, awesome buck. My biggest bow buck to date. If you have any problems or questions, give me a call. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the page, too.
All right, there you go. That's what we want.
Awesome.
I shot this deer last night. There's only one thing that could be better than that, is if you could shoot it from your tree stand just after you made the shot. There really is. That was a 24-hour call, Dusty.
Yeah, he was all jazzed up still. Did you hear it? You can hear it in his voice.
You can hear it. It's the adrenaline that you can hear in the voice. That's what we love.
He still had it 24 hours later.
Right. I mean, there's nothing like doing this for yourself, but you can live vicariously through others, because I can hear that on this show.
That's what we want to hear.
Right. This final call-in was from a guy named Whitney, and Whitney sent in some feedback about Danny, the knife maker that we highlighted on our show the other day.
Yes, this is Whitney from Fayetteville, Tennessee. I was calling to give you some feedback on Mr. Danny with Antler Creation Custom Knives. Had an experience with Mr. Danny about 3 years ago with my 7-year-old boy. He survivor of leukemia, won one of Mr. Danny's knives at a Kids Hunting for a Cure event for killing a big buck, and very, very good quality knife. We're still friends with Mr. Danny and Miss Stephanie. Look forward to seeing them here soon. Just wanted to let everybody know it is a great knife to have to go hunting with and use around the house. Thank y'all for your time.
That gave me cold chills, Jay.
Doesn't it?
That was very cool.
This makes you feel great.
Yeah, big shout out to Danny Hottinger.
Absolutely. Danny Hottinger, thank you very much for being on our show and changing people's lives. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yep. And this is the kind of feedback we'd like to hear from you guys out there. Pick up your phone. You know, if you're driving to your hunting site, give us a call. Tell us what you're doing, where you're going, what you hope to find when you get there. Call us about the big deer you just shot. Tell us about how a hunting experience changed your life. All those things we want to hear on the Big Buck Registry. We'd like to start playing some more of these. So if you have a second, give us a call at 724-613-2825.
You know, even if you've missed a monster, you've been hunting this big deer forever, and you made a bad shot and you missed him. Tell us all about it. You know, we want to hear everything.
Yeah. Or even if you've got this big deer on camera and you're going in, give us a daily catalog, a daily journal. All right. This is, day 1, day 2. Didn't see anything. A lot of squirrels. Nothing was moving. Whatever. If you want to do that, we'll play it each and every time on the Big Buck Registry to find out what people are doing across the country. Because this is another element of saving and preserving those hunting stories. That's a piece of Americana. That is the sole purpose why we're here today.
Danny Hottinger, we give a shout out to you again. Antler Creations Custom Knives. Look him up on Facebook. Jay, it's been a great show. We've had a lot of fun. We started out pretty interesting, and we ended on a funny note with calling my brother. Shout out to you, Matt, for picking up the phone. Yeah, it was fun. We're going to do some more of that because I enjoy it, and it gives us kind of something we can cut up a little bit about.
It's been a kind of a emotional roller coaster type of show where we started out very serious and about federal funds, and then we went to prank calling, and then we went to some very deep emotional inspiration from Danny Hottinger. So it's been an interesting show today.
Yeah, I think next time we're going to call one of Jay's friends and get them on the phone and see if we can get their blood pressure raised up a little bit.
Nice. All right, let's do it. All right, so how can we reach you, Dusty?
www.facebook.com/Chubby Outdoors.
Excellent. And this is Jay Scott, and you can reach me by emailing me at j@bigbuckregistry.com. You can always call the show for feedback, and anything else you want to send our way is 724-613-2825. You can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/BigBuckRegistry. Our Twitter handle is Big Buck Registry, and our website is www.bigbuckregistry.com. And you can find us on pretty much every major podcast directory. This is an internet radio show broadcast every single week at 5 a.m. on Saturday mornings. And you can find us on Blueberry. You can find us on iTunes. If you have an Apple device, you can find us on Microsoft. You can find it on the Microsoft Xbox app. You can find us on Stitcher, Blueberry. Probably double saying some of these things, but we're on a lot of podcast directories. So
we're getting out there.
We're definitely getting out there. And if you want to share it, you can always push an arrow. There's all kinds of share options when you're listening to these shows, no matter what directory you're on. Hit the share button, post it on your Facebook page, post it on your Twitter account, send an email to your best friends that love to hear about deer hunting and different things that are going on in the country, and that somebody that would like to hear the stories that we're preserving here at the Big Buck Registry. So I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
Awesome. We look forward to the next show, and if you guys getting out in the woods, still be safe out there.
Absolutely. All right, this is Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Can't wait.